When was the first time you noticed this place was so special?
I'm not sure. I mean, it was great during the tour, but maybe it was afterwards.
Yeah, I think it was at Gary's wedding last spring, wasn't it?
Yeah, the people were so friendly.
That's when I realized Nelson was like home to me.
The Best Kept Secret, The City of Nelson, with Rick and Amanda Hansen. Brought to you by the people who play Lotto BC. The BC Dairy Foundation. Maintain your cool. And Overweighty and Save on Foods, BC's very own food people.
There's things about Nelson that strike you as soon as you arrive. It's a quaint town, not in the negative sense. I mean, it really is quaint. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a small town. It's, a population of about 8,000, give or take.
Yeah, I feel comfortable. It's about the same size as Williams Lake. Hi there, how are you?
Good.
You getting all ready for the games?
You bet.
Excellent. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. The beauty of the city is still the same. It's just fantastic. People are so friendly here. And they stop to chat and help out visitors.
Do you know that a dime can still get you an hour's worth of parking, and that a parking ticket will only cost you, Rick, $3?
Hey, that's great. Hey, there's Elvis Barbershop. You know they still do hot shaves with straight razors there?
Well, why don't you step on in? You know, Rick, being here for the BC Games has given us a chance to have a really close look at the town that's been called the best kept secret.
Check. Look at that bottle there.
Hudson's Bay store opened in 1900.
Yeah. Hi.
Nelson is set on the shores of Kootenay Lake. It is surrounded by the Selkirk Mountains. Throw these elements together and you can get a magnificent view from almost every perspective in town. There are over 350 buildings designated as heritage sites, and Nelson is the model city for heritage revival in Canada.
And it's Nelson's outstanding physical beauty that first led Hollywood here.
3 years ago, this fire hall was the centerpiece for Steve Martin's movie Roxanne.
As a matter of fact, there were 2 feature-length movies filmed here back in 1986. And a strange thing happened.
In the reviews for Roxanne and Housekeeping, Nelson was mentioned just about as often as the stars.
It's amazing. Tourism has increased here dramatically ever since.
Go! Let's go! Come on, come on! Look at this, Chief! Get a good stream. Lean into it now. You gotta trust it. Remember, water is your friend. Now. Okay, now.
The town enjoyed its new status and reaped the economic benefits of being a film location. One local restaurant went as far as changing its name to Roxanne's.
Don't be stupid. I want to look like Diana Ross.
What you want is psychotherapy.
Yeah, I can hear it now. Get used to it. $85, please.
Look, see.
With the impact of the movie, it's no wonder that Roxanne has earned a place in Nelson's history. And this wasn't the first time that the city capitalized on a good idea.
The New York Tribune covered the murder case involving 2 miners who battled over a silver claim at the Bluebell mine. This was the first blood spilled as Americans and British moved into the Kootenays seeking their fortunes. 5 years later, a group from Washington State, led by the Hall brothers, discovered the Silver King mine, and the town of Nelson was born. Just as the town was developing, it was dealt its first blow. A massive flood that wiped out communication, transportation, and destroyed a lumber mill. But soon they were back on track. Kootenay Lake, famous for sternwheelers, the first electric street railway west of Winnipeg, which ended its route at the Grove Hotel or the Palace of Sin. Nelson was a Wild West town. There were even horse races down Baker Street. At the turn of the century, fruit farmers from Britain were the next settlers. Out of the wilderness, they nurtured prize-winning produce. These farmers civilized the town, introducing garden parties and tennis. But then another setback came. The silver was depleted at the Silver King mine, and an arsonist moved into Nelson, starting many fires in 1911. But the city marched onward, sending the boys off to World War I and losing many. And one undiscovered stagehand at Nelson's Capitol Theater moves south to find stardom. His name, Boris Karloff. Nelson survived as a cultural mecca despite another big fire, this time at the Opera House in 1935. As time went by, Nelson turned these setbacks into positive steps forward.
Strong in community pride is Nelson's fine, up-to-date fire department.
Industries like this match factory always sustained the city through hard times, and the people were fun-loving. Recreation of all kinds, including an annual summer bonspiel. In the 60s, the good times continued. The Kootenai Summer School of the Arts was unique in British Columbia. The 70s were fantastic for Nelson. They were years of cultural and economic growth. But then came the early 80s, and things went terribly wrong. Hundreds of residents lost their jobs when 2 Nelson lumber mills closed. David Thompson University Center was shut down, sending students elsewhere for their education. CP Rail began phasing out its yards. BC Tel closed their office. And very quickly, for sale signs were popping up on lawns all over town. There really wasn't too much to stick around for. It looked like Nelson was down and out. For those people that remained behind, there's no doubt that there was a strong belief in Nelson, what it was and what it could be. They were prepared to move forward at all costs. Over $2.5 million were dedicated to revitalizing the city core. The first building to be renovated was a heritage hotel. Next came the improvement of the Capitol Theater, which was restored to its old former glory. One by one, people got behind and championed the cause. We saw Roxanne, we saw an increase in tourism. It was just phenomenal how the community spirit was really the glue that held it together through its darkest days. And you have to be here to really feel that spirit. But believe me, it does exist. Every time there was a step backwards, a setback, we saw this community rally and move forward with a new triumph. I know what adversity is all about. I'm proud of these people. I know that they're proud of themselves. There's a spirit and a motto of the city of Nelson that lives in the hearts and the eyes of its citizens. And that spirit and that motto is forge ahead. Well done, Nelson.
Students have come back to Nelson, but this time the university has a new name: Canadian International College. For the past year, over 250 Japanese students have taken courses in English, international business, and environmental studies. A tuition of over $25,000 covers 2 years of travel, recreation, dorm, and fine dining in the school cafeteria. In a short time, the students have gained a good impression of Canadians.
When I was in the United States, I missed Canada a lot because Canadians are so friendly. For example, when my friends and I go for a drive in the car and get stuck in the road, Canadians unfailingly stop and help us.
People are very friendly, so I can stay in Nelson very comfortably.
Yuko Okazaki is in international business studies. Every week she leaves the campus to do some volunteer work at the Heritage Hotel, where she's learning to be a desk receptionist. Already she has the desire to stay and work in a Canadian hotel.
I think it's very important to live in the world for my future.
The Japanese students enjoy a lot of the same pastimes as the local residents, including these two ladies who entered a local talent show earlier this month. Their comedy act won them first prize in the competition.
Oh, you're very welcome. Beautiful. You are the most beautiful girl I've ever seen before. Be my girl. Isn't it perfect?
With the the growing community interaction, the students are getting over their shyness.
I always say hello or hi, but in Japan, I never say hello or hi.
Luna Yamana is also gaining a lot from Nelson. Twice weekly, she volunteers as a candy striper at Kootenay Lake General Hospital.
Is that good?
The city council started to lure the Japanese here in 1986. The work has paid off. Nelson has received both an economic and cultural boost. Local businesses welcome their new neighbors and are starting to learn from them as well. Again, Nelson forges ahead.
Thanks, Ron. Great cup of coffee here at Waite's Newsstand in Nelson, BC with the owner, Ron. And Ron Rubeniuk has had this place for a couple of years, and I understand, Ron, you can get a great cup of coffee like this and buy a lottery ticket at the same time, can't you?
Yes, you can.
And you sell a lot of lottery tickets here.
Every day.
And Nelson's really excited about the BC Winter Games?
Very much so.
Do you know who actually pays for the BC Winter Games?
No, I don't.
It's people like you, Ron, who sell those lottery tickets and the people who play lotteries in British Columbia. I'd like to pin this award on you.
Do you feel like you're going round and round in circles when you go to buy a new car or truck? With all the so-called freebies, giveaways, and gimmicks, we know it's real confusing. Here at Maloney Pontiac, we'll take the confusion out of buying. And now, for a limited time, we'll offer you 10.9% financing. But hurry, this 10.9% financing is a limited offer. Call now, call collect. 365-2155. That's 365-2155.
Air transportation provided by the New Spirit of the West, Air BC, the official airline of the BC Games.
Among the many heritage homes in Nelson, we found this 11-acre hobby farm owned by the Precious family. Parents Teresa and Russell and their children Layla, Emma, Michael, and Bronwyn, who gave us such a warm welcome.
Hi. Hi, Michael.
Hey, wait. Hi, Amanda. Yeah.
Kind of like
4 years ago, Teresa and Russell set out in search of the dream place to raise the kids. They looked through California, Oregon, the Gulf Islands, and the Okanagan. They ran their own business in West Vancouver, but wanted to live outside the Lower Mainland. It was a long journey to Nelson, where today the children can skate in their own outdoor ice rink. The decision to live here came during a campout on Kootenay Lake.
We'd always loved that area, so we thought we'd take a break and camp there for a few days. Arrived there one night in a thunderstorm, camped right on the lake. Woke up the next morning and the thunderstorm had passed and it was clear. And we kind of woke up and I guess we thought we were in paradise. It kind of was that feeling. I mean, the west arm of Kootenay Lake, the whole area is not too hard to frequently feel you're in paradise.
I think the thing that struck us the most about Nelson, we had been looking all over California and Oregon and all over BC, rurally, for a community to settle in. And I think that one of the things that struck us about Nelson when we came out here was a sense of pride of place. And you know, it's really true. And I was really struck by just the natural beauty of the place for one thing, but how the kind of pride people took in their homesteads.
2 years ago, Teresa and Russell agreed to try and have the best of both worlds. They moved to Nelson, and as Teresa puts it, they began homesteading. But Russell still commutes 450 miles to West Vancouver to run his health food store and restaurant.
Why not? I was just thinking about that yesterday.
Right now I've got it down to a schedule where I do 12 days here straight. I allow basically a day for traveling each way, although it is actually about half a day. And I spend 7 full days at home. There's a particular place on the highway where you see Nelson. And Nelson's referred to as the Queen City of the Kootenays. But I mean, it really is it's a jewel. It's kind of nestled in the mountains.
Teresa says it's a strong sense of community in Nelson that drew her here.
Initially, we thought we would be much closer to Vancouver than this. We thought this would be too far. But having looked right across the province, this was the place that just said, this is where we really want to be. Let's try it, you know. And so far, it's worked really well, you know. Russell likes the drive.
Down at King's Family Restaurant, the longtime residents describe their town.
Well, it's the best place in BC. nice, quiet town.
The crime rate here is very small. A lady can still walk up and down the street by herself at night.
John McDermott and Peter Plotnikof often meet for a morning cup of tea. And while Peter says most Nelsonites are friendly, there may be some exceptions.
Some that aren't nice, well, we just don't pay no attention. We try to be nice to them anyway. Sometimes it's a chore.
I've had visitors come in from California, and they ask us, why do you people go to California and other place for your holidays? Says, we come here and we find Nelson a better place than anywhere else. So why go out for holidays? Spend your holidays right at home. But because we were here all the time, I guess we don't notice those things.
I enjoy it here. I wouldn't move out of here for retirement. This is the only place, I figure.
Poet Tom Wayman also loves the pace of life in Nelson, but he had to leave for Vancouver when the David Thompson University Centre closed in 1984.
Nelson for me is magical. It's a magical location, and I find the people there stimulating. Like any small town, the pace is a lot slower, a lot more human. So people will stop and launch into conversations with you. Coming from the city, at first I was taken aback by that, because in the city, if someone starts a conversation, you know it's some kind of scam. They're running something by you. When you're in Nelson, you're not just living beside people as in the city, but that you're building a community together.
In the beautiful city of Nelson at the BC Winter Games, this is Emily Beauchamp. She's a hostess volunteer, and really hard and a lot of work, isn't it, Emily?
It certainly is, but it's very, very worthwhile.
Everybody in Nelson is so excited about these games, right?
Right.
Do you know who actually pays for the Winter Games?
The lottery players.
That's exactly right. It's the people who play lotteries in British Columbia. And I guess you're grateful for them, are you?
Love it.
We're going to give you this special award that says I paid for the BC Games because I know you play too.
Thank you.
The people of Nelson have been more than enthusiastic about hosting this year's Winter Games.
Nearly half the residents have been serving as Games volunteers, and that's over 4,000 people.
Yeah, they've taken their games very seriously. As a matter of fact, for the last, 2 months now, every Friday has been BC Winter Games Day, where the staffs of over 100 businesses have been wearing BC Games t-shirts and sweatshirts.
And it's that kind of spirit that's led to a very tangible success. Over $160,000 worth of game souvenirs have been sold even before the games ever began, and that is a record.
And now that the games have begun, souvenir sales are skyrocketing. Some of the town's 4,000 plus volunteers are offering their help by selling these collector's items. And some volunteers, like Malcolm Copeland, have taken to the game's spirit by offering their homes to out-of-town visitors. And some have volunteered their time to make the opening ceremonies a memorable event. They've been rehearsing for months. And never in the 11-year history of the BC Games has there been a full capacity crowd to cheer on the rehearsal of the opening ceremonies. And it was standing room only for the real thing on Thursday night. The people from Nelson were justifiably proud of the ceremonies.
We're very excited, very proud of our town.
Exciting as hell.
Very thrilled and actually just have goosebumps.
The show included an historical salute to Nelson's early years.
I think it's like a big family here.
Yes, it's very nice for Nelson to get the BC Winter Games.
It's great having everyone here.
And then the athletes arrive to the beat of a song especially written for the games.
It's unreal. It's great.
By the way, there were 4,021 people in the crowd. Oh, and one cat.
I understand he lives in the building.
They're doing everything just wonderful. It's great.
I love Nelson. This is where I'm going to retire.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you decide that just now, or have you always known that?
Well, I took a walk this afternoon, looked at the buildings, the history that's written in it, and this is where I want to be 8 years from now.
We just love Nelson.
Just at this end.
BC Winter Games in Nelson are now officially open.
This is Whitewater, where there'll be a lot of great skiing over the BC Winter Games, and we've got a great skier, the coach of the Kootenay Zone. This is Tracy Billett. Hello, Tracy. How many on your team?
10.
10. Tracy, do you know who actually pays for the BC Winter Games?
The lottery players of BC.
That's right. It's the people who play lotteries. Do you play lotteries?
Yes, I do.
Well, then you help pay for all this. We congratulate you, and for being such a great supporter and, of course, being a great coach, we're going to award you with this medal, I paid for the BC Games.
Of economic hardship and then pure determination that allowed Nelson to preserve its history. Through the years, it's been called the heritage capital of the Kootenays, the heart of the Kootenays, and the Queen City. Those who rode in a streetcar in the first half of the century will soon have a chance to ride in it again, along with their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren.
You can look at the restoration of this streetcar as a symbol of Nelson, using its history to move forward. The streetcar will hopefully be back on the track in the next year. There are new hotels being planned, new industries coming. The future looks very positive.
The 3,000 participants in the BC Winter Games will have a chance to experience Nelson firsthand. And one of the locals has a message for them.
Well, let them come and have a look around. And I'm sure half of them won't go back again to where they're living. They're going to be staying here.
The best kept secret, brought to you by the people who play Lotto BC. The BC Dairy Foundation. Maintain your cool. And Overweighty and Save on Foods, BC's very own food people. Ski jackets for the BCTV staff and crew are provided by Jones Leisure Products, fashioning Canada's outdoors.
Let's take a moment now and go back up to Nelson, BC and find out how the BC Winter Games are doing.
Lotto helps make it happen. Where the money goes.
Winter Games fever has hit Nelson, and even British Columbia's premier has the spirit.
Hey, where else but Nelson would a person want to be this weekend? This is great.
2,500 athletes registered for this year's games. They will participate in more than 20 sporting events.
We're the Richmond netball team. Okay?
Ending tomorrow with the medal presentations. But before any competitions, everyone has a chance to take part in the opening ceremonies. It took many hours of rehearsing to put together this elaborate demonstration of local talent. An already packed Civic Arena barely had room for the athletes, all 2,500 of them, plus Lucky Dog, a big sport in more ways than one. This Civic Arena, site of the opening ceremonies as well as several sporting events during the games, was recently upgraded. The upgrading, which included a new sound system, was made possible by the players of Lotto BC.
The 1989 BC Winter Games in Nelson are now officially open.
Nelson Games are the 11th annual BC Winter Games. British Columbia is the only province to host annual winter and summer games. And like past games, the event marks the culmination of thousands of volunteer hours. Lotto BC, a sponsor of the games, salutes both the volunteers and the athletes.